good morning, and welcome to you wherever you are in the YouTube universe, in the online universe. We are in the sanctuary of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota, and we are together with the Unitarian Universalist of Lakewood Ranch. But we are happy to have you, whether you are members or visitors or just stopping by. We're happy to have you to worship with us. We're going to have a beautiful prelude now by Don Bryn, and there'll be some announcements scrolled along the bottom of the screen, and you'd better be fast and catch those, but I'll talk to you about those in a minute. So we'll see you back here in just a minute. Well, I hope you enjoyed the artwork and the music that was just provided along with some of the announcements of our church. Again, I want to say a special welcome, a warm welcome to all of you. If you haven't, well, if you're a visitor here, we want you to look at our website online. It has a special visitors register there, and you go to the visitor center, and on our home page, you register there, and you'll get emails from us which will tell you more about the programs that we have and how to connect with all of the activities that are going on because this church is here in Sarasota. Please consider registering on the virtual guest book so you can participate in all of that. Get our newsletter, you'll learn about virtual events and some of the future activities of our church. Also, for everybody, there's a donate button on the website. That's our offering plate, and we pass it, and we invite you to participate in the support of the ministries of this church by going to our website there and pressing the donate button, the donate button, and making a contribution to support the work of the church. There is a special announcement I'd like to make today. The Reverends Beth Miller and Doug Wadkins are going to offer a 4-part program called Discovering UU on Zoom on Saturday afternoons, April 17th and 24th, May 1st and May 8th from 3 to 4:30. I am new to the UU. I'm here from another tradition, and I absolutely love the experience that I'm having at this church, and I want to learn more about it, and some of you are in that position too, and if you're curious, if you're interested, please join us for this discovery. UU. Participants will share our own religious histories. We'll get to know each other. We'll learn about the history of the parent denominations of the UU, the Unitarians and the Universalists. Since the 1961 merger, we'll hear from staff and from lay leaders about this congregation's history and its structure and its mission and the programs that we offer. So, whether you're a new UU, just learning about our faith, or a long-time member or friend wanting a refresher course to connect, this is for you. Details of this are in the contact, which is our newsletter. You can get it there, or you can email Beth at bethmuucs@gmail.com to sign up. And her email is always in the contact and on the home page of the website under Pastoral Care and Connection. So there is another reason to sign up on our register, so you are on the list where you get notifications. So again, thank you for being here. There will be a coffee hour following our worship service that you go to a Zoom link that has been sent previously and join us in conversation there. And now let us move into our worship service with some music and then liturgy.
It's time now for our chalice lighting. If you have a chalice at home that you'd like to light, please join us in doing that. We have a reading to share with you called We Travel This Road Together by the Reverend Tess Bumberger. And during that reading, there's a line that repeats itself. Will you join us in saying it? We travel this road together. It's on the screen. And we begin. From the busyness of every day, we gather once a week to remember who we are, to dream of who we might become. We travel this road together.
As companions on this journey, we share the milestones we encounter along the way. Individual moments of joy and sorrow become shared moments of comfort and celebration.
We travel this road
together.
We share this journey across differences of belief and opinion because we value diversity and because care for one another. We travel this road together. As today we take the next steps, let us notice our fellow travelers, the burdens that they carry, the songs that inspire their hearts.
As we gather in beloved community, let us open the holy havens of our hearts. Let us share the sacred places of our souls, for we are pilgrims who share a common path. We travel this road together. And now, we light the chalice in the spirit of the third principle. We covenant to affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. And please join us now in the opening hymn, number 1017, Building a New Way, Building a New Way.
We come now to the centering portion of our worship, and we will use words, and we will use silence, and we will use music to center ourselves. The words that we will use were written by Thomas Rhodes. It's called Walking the Crooked Path. Holy Spirit of life and love, you who are our source and our ultimate destiny, lead us this day on a crooked path. So often we are in so much of a hurry, taking the direct route to our goal, not allowing ourselves to be distracted, sometimes being too direct with one another in all that we seek to do, to be, and to have. But we can see that no river takes a direct path to the sea. Your trees and bushes sprout crooked limbs, and birds and beasts and insects meander in their search for food, shelter, or a mate. We lose so much when we take the direct routes. The interstate which bypasses the quaint township, the arrow that misses the mark, the chance to stop and say hello, and how are you, and really listen to the reply. So lead us on the crooked path, past wandering streams and crooked trees, following our heart's desire, not just duty's demands, for the crooked path leads us home. And now let us join together in silence, and then we will sing together Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life and shape of justice. Roots hold me close, winds set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
I'm the Reverend Doug Wadkins. I'm the interim minister. For a few minutes, I'd like to reflect with you on this month's theme, which is becoming, and the ways in which it is a sort of crooked path, all its own, towards deeper awareness. We begin with a poem written by Derek Walcott, Love After Love. The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you have ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. As we think about becoming, there are many journeys into that topic, and what we hope to do in these few moments is to offer some possible inroads, connections for you to begin to explore in your own life. An important idea behind all of this are the ways in which our personal day-to-day experiences impact how we understand ourselves on a very deep and substantial level. And also, in a very related way, the myriad ways that the world around us, quite often the concentric circles of community, for instance, also are a part of our deep transformation of becoming. And the last few years, and especially the last year, has been a dramatic and significant example of how that larger concentric circle of community can deeply impact how we understand ourselves. From the election to the continued divisions in our country and the world, from the ongoing struggle with racism in our country, and in just this last year alone, the significant individual choices that collectively have turned into movements and have continued to give us some insight into the deeper truth of our seventh principle, an assertion of an interdependent web, one that in this last year has both saved lives and cost them as we've made choices as individuals in the pandemic. And this time will likely continue to alter our lives as far as we can see into the future. So we have the truth of the community's power writ large before us as we think about this topic of becoming. For each of these truths, if we take a few moments to sit with them, they may offer deep grist for our own exploration of this month's theme. So let's begin with that personal and internal awareness of our own pathway. I turn to the writing of Unitarian Universalist minister Amanda Pompey. She writes, "Sometimes our becomings are dramatic. We realize that the gender we thought we were or others thought we were isn't correct after all. Or we discover that the career we had planned or the marriage we had begun isn't really who we are, or is no longer right for who we have become. Sometimes, though, our becoming is gradual, a kind of unfolding and changing and shifting over time. Always, it is lifelong, which isn't to say that we aren't already who we are. We are that too. We are already ourselves, the minute we are born and every minute thereafter. However long our lives end up being, even when they are cut painfully and tragically short, we are our full selves every second, every month, every year of our lives. And yet, we are also always becoming ourselves, growing and stretching. This interrelationship process is essential to thinking about how this topic may speak to us most meaningfully. We are always part of a process in which we realize that which once felt like a given, a place of stability and comfort, comes to a time in our lives where we sense deeply that something has changed in ourselves, in the outer world, something, and we know how powerful it is. Sometimes the impetus isn't external, and sometimes it feels like it is more internally driven, but it always passes through the powerful discernment of how we come to understand it, either as a moment of removing some component of our lives that creates distance from our true self. For as Albert Schweitzer wrote, the path of awakening is not about becoming who you are, rather it is about unbecoming who you are not, which took me a while to think about, to understand one particular understanding. But it is also discovering a direction for our being that brings us more in alignment with the intuitive sense of our deepest self, probably deeply connected to who we have been since our birth, but often understood by our experience in new and powerful ways. This is our becoming. This is part of what we seek to understand. And while each of us has our individual pathway to that, it is also significant to understand that there are some common threads in this journey. And those common threads might help us perhaps recognize more easily where we are on the path. As we come to understand this sense of becoming, there are many ways that we could refer to it. We could refer to it as unfolding or blossoming. We could understand it as connecting again with the true meaning of our lives. But psychologist Frank Martella did some research and found that those who are seeking to find meaning most likely connect with that meaning by creating three interconnected yet separate qualities in their life. First, he writes, one needs to know a coherence that comes from when you know what is true inwardly and you feel that it is reflected in the way you are in the world. Knowing that your life makes sense. And coherence is the second component of that. Coherence is grounded in an inner life that serves as a guide in times of stress and change, that creates vision, that orients one towards a future and gives one a sense of purpose, which then leads us to the second quality that you need in order to connect with that meaning, and that is purpose. Purpose is the connective tissue between the two, your coherence and your purpose, and it is connected most deeply by the third quality, significance, an understanding or a sense that your life is worthwhile and your life itself is meaningful. Sometimes you feel that it is true that you are connected to and a vital part of something larger than yourself. So, in a moment, we'll move into an interlude, but I invite you to think about those three components that help one connect more powerfully with meaning. How are you doing with that sense of coherence in your own life? The ways in which what you believe inside seems to connect with the world outside. And for that matter, where are the places that feel incoherent? Secondly, what is that sense of purpose that seems to thread itself through this time for you most powerfully? Or for that matter, is there some place where you feel a lack of purpose? Neither right or wrong, but perhaps a place in your life to sit with and see what it says to you. And finally, how are you doing with your sense of your own significance, your own sense of worth about your life? All of these are just places for now to notice. As we move into the interlude, I invite you to be with those questions. Let them say to you what you will, and then we'll come back in a moment and continue our exploration of becoming. So, there are powerful ways in which our discernment is always that internal process, that coming to know what is deeply true within us. But it is also true that we continuously connect with the outer world, and that is essential. So the second part of our exploration is on how we become together. Jennifer Michael Hecht talked about this in a podcast. We do believe each other into being. Imagine yourself alone on this planet, Would anything be the same? Would you wash a dish? Would you think about your productivity? Would you think about when you slept? How would you conceive of what your life means? It's like a little kid left alone in a house, just a sudden shock of existential distress. We make meaning for each other, and our culture makes the meaning as well. And we each have a sort of set of friends in our head, people that we know who have thought of life as really terrible and yet have decided that there is something meaningful and beautiful in it nonetheless. And all of this becomes a sort of communalism. So yeah, I certainly believe that we believe each other into being. We're not much when we're not in the eyes of someone else, at least some of the time. So there is much evidence that in so many different ways, the relationships that we have are essential in our becoming. They help us know what we are to do. They help us know ourselves. They help us know by relationship what is abidingly and deeply true. And in many ways, that is part of the gift of being in community of all kinds, but especially in community of the religious sort. Often when people talk about why they think that they need to go to what I will call, just for the sake of simplicity, a church, often is that there is something that you can learn about the holy only in this space. And that may be true, but I believe the truth of it is not what we might expect. Our transcendentalist forebears were clear that if you really want to encounter the divine, the way you first and probably most powerfully do it is in the beauty of nature or the wonder of the creative mind in music and in writing. In direct experience is how we most know the holy. The real value of religious community, I think, is steeped in two important components of the experience. The one that it is by being with each other and understanding the ways that we are deeply alike, but also quite different, that begins to inform a more meaningful, more balanced, more largely lived understanding of who we are becoming. So on one level, it is all of the things that trouble us about community that tell us also part of what is deeply and abidingly true about life, and therefore about anything that might be holy. But even more so, it begins to reflect some of the larger, ongoing spiritual path necessary to encounter life writ large. In other words, I think at its best, Unitarian Universalism offers us this experiment week after week, coming together and rather than pretending like we believe exactly the same thing or that we think exactly the same way, that we live with the power of our differences as well. We certainly foster our common path, but we also let the differences inform us. And sometimes in spite of, sometimes because of those differences, we experiment in learning how to live together, to love each other anyway. And even more than that, how to live in a way that makes the world a better place, that brings about greater good for each other and ultimately for stranger and friend alike. I believe ultimately that is what we are here to practice in Unitarian Universalism. And that is very similar to what we are challenged with on this planet. I began at the start of the sermon by saying how the last year has really presented us with some powerful examples of this interconnection. Well, there are many ways that we are thinking about becoming that are not just about ourselves and yet are deeply connected to ourselves. We wonder what is becoming on this planet. And I would imagine that many of you in your heart of hearts, especially after this year's election and the pandemic over the last months, you wonder, what is it that this country, what is America becoming? Parker Palmer wrote this: If American democracy fails, the ultimate cause will not be a foreign invasion or the power of big money or the greed and dishonesty of some elected official or a military coup or the internal communist, socialist, fascist takeover that keeps some Americans awake at night. It will happen because we, you and I, became so fearful of each other, of our differences, and of the future that we unraveled the civic community on which our democracy depends, losing our power to resist all that threatens it and call it back to the highest form. So I'm thinking about that. This crooked path of becoming takes us through all of this, and that is why it is so important and core to our journey together. It reminds us how important our inner journey is, but also that sense of authenticity to that inner connection, and how we need that coherence, that purpose, that sense of meaningfulness in our lives. It also reminds us how important it is that we understand outward connection, the way that community helps us know ourselves, sometimes in contrast to what we learn from other people, but also sometimes just by resting in the common journey that we have together and that we need to work together to make it through. And then all the way to the largest becomings, the way in which the culture of this planet and the culture of this country is always in a transition, always in the midst of change. All of these things are a thread of purpose and connection and meaning that make life powerful, sometimes overwhelming, but ultimately, I believe, deeply sacred. That is what becoming invites us to think about. All of it, to understand it as connected, to understand it as steeping us in a love of ourselves and each other and recognizing its power. So, as we move through this month, I invite you to find your own ways to connect with that theme in our sermons, in the packet that we offer if you sign up to be part of our journey circles, all of it. I end this morning with a blessing by Eric Williams as we journey through this powerful topic. Blessed is the path on which you travel. Blessed is the body that carries you upon it. Blessed is your heart that has heard the call. Blessed is your mind that discerns the way. Blessed is the gift that you will receive by going. Truly blessed is the gift that you will become on your journey. So may it be for each of us all over this country and this planet. I invite you to join us in our closing hymn, hymn number 108, My Life Flows On. We are coming to the end of our service, and I invite you to retrieve your candle or your chalice. In a moment, we will extinguish our chalices together. So it is true, your life, the life, is indeed flowing on, always. And yet there is always in the midst of it, no matter how loud the tumult, a song that you carry within you, that sings around you, a song of meaning, of truth, of freedom, of love. May you hear that song and pay attention to it when you need it most. For we extinguish this chalice, but we do not extinguish the light of that powerful wisdom. We do not extinguish the power of giving our lives to things that matter deeply. We do not extinguish the warmth that is a part of human love and community. Those will remain in your life until we gather and worship again. May your day and your week ahead be blessed. Thanks for joining us this morning.